Good morning, guys, and welcome back to my channel. So today I'm finally doing my video about PMDD, specifically what it is, how it affects me, and what things have helped me to deal with it. If you guys are new to my channel, no, I don't show myself on camera, so just sitting in front of the camera and being on film is not my jam. I film other things that I like and love, like perfumes and things in my house that I really like, and other things that I find beautiful and enjoyable and just hobbies, but I myself do not sit down in front of the camera. So hopefully that is not a deterrent for you to watch or listen to this video if you are new here. But I will put some pretty scenes in the background for you, and of course you can listen while you go to bed, go for a drive, clean your house, whatever the case is. So I have mentioned PMDD in passing in other videos on my channel, but I've never actually made the video on it, but I've had a lot of interest in a video like this. So for some background, I am not an expert on PMDD. I am a registered nurse by profession, but I am definitely not an expert. You should definitely see your own healthcare provider if you have any questions about your own physical or mental health. This video is just anecdotal. It is just for information / education. So first of all, what is PMDD? So PMDD, if you don't know, is basically an extension of PMS, where some people who have regular PMS have the normal symptoms like bloating, headache, breast tenderness, mood swings, a little bit of irritability, cramping, that kind of thing. For PMDD, it goes a little bit further. So where somebody with PMS might have cramping, bloating, anxiety, sugar cravings, mood swings, a little bit of depression, some sleep disturbance, some irritability, things like that are pretty typical with PMS. When you have PMD, it can sometimes go even further, and you can have extreme fatigue, emotional changes such as feelings of hopelessness, or even worse, you have decreased interest in usual activities, and bouts of extreme sadness. So I have not been formally diagnosed or officially diagnosed, but the way that I have kind of figured out that this must be what I have is because I have struggled with anxiety and depression throughout my life for various reasons at various times. I did not have the easiest past. The way that I figured out that I have PMDD is essentially because all of my issues circle around my hormones and my menstrual cycle. So essentially, like everybody else, I do get PMS, but mine sometimes gets so bad that I actually have to stay home from work, start and stop important projects that I shouldn't be starting or stopping. I become irrational. Sometimes I make really bad decisions. I have arguments that don't need to happen. I have gotten to the point that I wasn't able to get off the couch. I just laid there and cried for hours and hours on end and felt debilitated and felt like I needed to go to the hospital and admit myself. It has gotten very, very bad for me. I will get to the point where I'm asking myself questions like, is this life even worth living? Things like that. So it does get, quite bad. And it always happens centered around my period. So these are the types of things that happen a few days before my period starts. My worst day is usually 1 or 2 days before it actually begins. And it's amazing, just like clockwork. The second I start menstruating, like day 1, actually like hour 0 of my period, it's almost as if somebody flipped a light switch and all of a sudden somebody drew the blinds, drew the curtains. It's all of a sudden bright. I can see clearly. Yeah, it really can be very debilitating. It can make you feel to a point like you're having a major depressive episode that suddenly goes away once your period starts. So it's not just typical bitchiness, irritability, like what most women have. It goes even a step further for me sometimes. Not all the time. It definitely has improved, and that's why I'm making this video, to share some of the things that have helped me. So if this sounds familiar to you, then hopefully the rest of this video will be helpful for you, or at the very least help you to realize that you're not alone if you also struggle with PMDD. So one of the most important things for me in helping to cope with my PMDD is sleep. Obviously, you need to get enough sleep if you want to be functioning well emotionally. Like I said, I am a nurse, so I do shift work, and approximately half of my shifts are night shifts. And when I am going to struggle mentally, the worst times are definitely if I'm doing night shifts. So if I have regular PMS before my period, it's already hard, like on a good day, but if I'm not sleeping, it is even worse. I just become a complete emotional wreck if I'm not sleeping. And trying to sleep around night shifts, as most of you guys probably can imagine, or many of you probably know, is very, very difficult. I have tried numerous different things to work around my sleep schedule, but anyway, sleep has been probably one of the most important things. I have actually had to go down to working part-time, like half-time, because working full-time shift work is too hard on my body. So luckily, I am able financially to do that, to go down to working half-time instead of full-time, so that instead of doing like 5 night shifts a month or 6 night shifts, I'm only doing like 3 or 4 a month. But long story short, sleep is very, very important. And I noticed that if I get at least 7 hours, like no less than 7 hours, I cope okay. It's still not great, but I have definitely had times where I was only getting like 4 or 5 hours of sleep between shifts. And that just sent me right over the edge, like to the point that I had a complete breakdown. So sleep is super, super important. If you struggle with PMDD at all, I would definitely suggest make sure that you are avoiding caffeine later in the evening. Make sure that you have your sleep patterns down pat. If you have young kids at home, that can be difficult, but do whatever you can to get sleep, because that has been really, really helpful for me. So the second thing that kind of goes along with sleep is also part of lifestyle, and that is exercise/fitness/diet / avoiding alcohol consumption. So I also did take my certified fitness training course almost 10 years ago now. And I am huge into fitness. I've always been huge into fitness. Feeling good and feeling like I look good is important to me. It's always been next to my heart, near and dear to my heart. I just love the gym. I love lifting weights. I love feeling good about myself. So that has been hugely instrumental for me in helping to just be happy in general. And I noticed that if I let that slip, my PMS or PMDD is worse. It's that whole thing where people say, you know, you don't always feel like going to the gym, but after you leave the gym, you're so glad you did. I still have days like that. Like a lot of times people ask me, how do you stay so motivated to go to the gym? Honestly, you couldn't pay me not to go, because that's how good it makes me feel. And even if I don't feel like going, I always am so happy that I went. Everything in my life gets better when I feel good about myself. And the gym is not just a way to physically look good. It is a stress reliever. You have natural endorphins. It helps build your confidence. It gets you out of the house. You listen to good music. It's just all around really good and really helpful. It helps you sleep better at night. It's good for your body in so many ways. And definitely when I look after myself, you know, stay fit and put my best foot forward and put effort into my physique and avoid eating crap, I just feel better emotionally, physically, mentally, all the way around. So it is hugely helpful. Don't let that week be an excuse not to work out. Force yourself to do something, because you will feel better that you did it, versus taking, 5 to 7 days and not doing anything at all and then having to backtrack. You're going to have good and bad days, but even myself, even if it's like a bad day, quote unquote bad day, I'm not feeling my best, I don't feel like I look my best, I'm bloated, I always still feel better after I've done my workout and go home, and it makes me feel like I'm staying on track, and it definitely does help with my mood. So along with that is your diet. Obviously, when you eat crappy foods, you feel like crap physically and emotionally, whether it is guilt because you realize you just ate a whole tub of Ben & Jerry's because you just felt like it, or whether it's physically because now you feel bogged down and tired and groggy. When you are consuming a lot of refined sugars and a lot of caffeine and refined sugar caffeinated drinks, and you hit those walls of highs and lows with your energy, that can be really difficult to deal with even on a good day, let alone dealing with PMS. So it definitely does help a lot to be consuming a cleaner diet. I do allow myself to have cheat meals / treat meals, even like normally, just with my exercise and fitness routine, just because it actually helps me build muscle, and also psychologically it's just good for you to have whatever you like in moderation. I never restrict myself fully, and especially during that week, because I know that during that week I crave more snacky foods and junky foods and ice cream and stuff like that. So I don't avoid junk altogether, but just overall, I don't consume a lot of refined sugars for the most part. I don't ever buy like frappuccinos or caramel macchiatos. I don't drink pop. I don't drink juice. I consume water, coffee, and tea. Those are pretty much the 3 things that I drink on a daily basis. Coffee is one thing I should avoid a little bit more, because it definitely can contribute to lack of sleep. It can contribute to anxiety. It can contribute to irritability. It can make you feel a little bit more on edge. And during that week, I usually feel very on edge. Like I get really anxious and concerned and worried about things that I normally would not worry about during that week. So caffeine is something I should be avoiding in general. But I love coffee, you guys. It's my vice. I don't drink alcohol. I don't smoke cigarettes. I don't go out for dinners very often. Like I don't do things like that. So coffee for me is like something I just enjoy so much. And it probably would benefit me to cut back a little bit, but so yeah. But for me, definitely eating a clean diet, making sure that I'm drinking lots of water, and avoiding alcohol is very, very helpful. When I was younger, like quite a lot younger, I used to drink a lot, especially when I was like in my late teens, early 20s. Like I said, I did not have the greatest first half of my life. I definitely was drinking too much on the weekends with my friends, and I just can't imagine the impact that alcohol would have on my life these days. Alcohol for me just has no place in my life. It doesn't have a place in the fitness aspect. It doesn't help me sleep. It makes me feel like garbage. It makes me feel dehydrated and gross and groggy. I get headaches. I just don't handle it very well. And I also just think it's really bad for your inhibitions and obviously decision making. I think that a little bit of alcohol here and there in moderation socially, like for special occasions, personally, I think that's fine. And for me, that works okay. Like I will have 2 ounces of white wine here and there with a nice steak dinner or something, every couple of months. And that's about it. Otherwise, I don't consume alcohol at all. Just in a nutshell, it does not make me feel good physically, mentally, emotionally. It just makes me feel like garbage. So it's something that I do avoid. And I have no doubt that it absolutely helps me deal with my PMDD and helps me avoid some of those depressive symptoms and just feelings of lethargy, not wanting to do things. So fitness and eating a clean diet and avoiding alcohol and getting good sleep, all of those things totally go hand in hand. And even just making small changes in the right direction with those things can help tremendously. So the next thing is self-care. Now this is a lot of stuff. This is like an umbrella term that encompasses a ton of different things, because obviously self-care for me is also getting sleep, going to the gym, eating well. So there's a lot of things that can go into self-care, but also for me, self-care is decluttering. Self-care is keeping my house clean and tidy. Self-care is making sure that I make my bed every morning when I get out of bed, because I like the way my bedroom looks when my bed is clean. Self-care is indulging in hobbies and things that I love. One of those things is perfumery. I like to keep my house looking nice. I love rearranging. I love organizing. I love just like making myself a cup of coffee and spending a few hours in solitude in my house, in my bedroom, doing little things here and there and just kind of mucking about, like organizing, decluttering, going through things, sniffing my perfumes. So that's a little bit of self-care for me. Keeping a clean house is also really, really important to me. I know it's easier said than done, you guys. I do have 2 children. I have had toddlers in the house, and I know that obviously it's easier said than done to keep your place clean, but like do the best that you can within your means. Obviously, if you have like 3 young children running around, your house is not going to stay clean and quiet. You have to do what you can to find that alone time and to find that peace time for yourself, whether it's half an hour at night after they go to bed and you take that half an hour and you clean your house and like do some self-care, do a face mask, whatever, before you go to sleep. You have to find time for that. That's very important, because you cannot fill somebody else's cup if your cup is empty. You cannot give if you do not have. So you need to be selfish and you need to look after yourself. I have learned this the hard way, but I prioritize self-care. Like, I do not feel bad about buying that expensive face cream because it makes me feel like I'm at a spa every day for like 2 seconds in the morning, and it's amazing. So looking after myself, doing self-care, putting my best foot forward, trying not to let myself quote unquote go. Like, it's very easy to spend your days when you're a parent, especially when you're a working parent. It's easy to do that. I've been there, done that. But I absolutely, at this point in my life, I've realized how fast time goes by, and I refuse to live that kind of life for myself. I want to feel great every day to the best of my ability. And so that's what I try to do. So self-care is huge as well. Some days you have a bad day and you're not going to feel good about doing self-care. You're not going to feel good about doing anything. Those days are going to come, which leads me to my next point. Okay, so as I just touched on, there will be times when you just cannot feel better. No matter what you do, you cannot feel better. Anybody who has ever struggled with depression, like I have, I've struggled with depression, by the way, aside from PMDD. I have had postpartum depression, so I know what it's like to go through even harder than PMDD, where it's stretched out over a longer period of time. I've been there, done that. So there are times, anybody who's ever struggled with those kind of things or with PMDD knows that sometimes you just can't feel better. Like, there's nothing you can do about it. So if you talk to any woman who's gone through PMS or PMDD or deals with mood swings during that time, they will tell you that they just can't help it. Even I know my boyfriend will, or in the beginning parts of our relationship, he would say, but can't you just like tell yourself that everything's fine? Like, can't you just, like, don't you know rationally that everything's okay and you're just having a bad day? Like, you're just bitchy today, you're just feeling down for no reason. Like, life is good. Like, can't you just tell yourself that? And the truth is no. So number 5 is self-awareness. When you are in the depths of a depression, like I actually get very, very depressed sometimes during my PMDD, especially the day or two before my period. Sometimes it gets so bad that, like I said, I feel like life is over, like life is ending, and I'm significantly sad and depressed. And when I am in those moments, I can't get out of that. Like, I can't get out of it. And anybody who's struggled with it will tell you, rationally, they might know that this is just their brains, this is just their emotions, their hormones, the chemicals in their brain and how everything is functioning. They might know rationally that this is just them, but you still can't get out of it. So for me, self-awareness has been huge. First of all, recognizing and learning that these patterns happened around my menstrual cycle so that I knew to expect them. And also I knew to plan for them. So there's a couple of parts of that. The first part is planning around it. So obviously, don't plan certain things during that week. Like, don't plan important meetings, important job interviews, conversations that might be difficult. If you have a conversation that you have to have with somebody, it's probably not the best time to do it during that week. See if you can push it ahead to a different time when you're going to be feeling better. Do not make decisions during that week, for the love of God. This is something that has been very hard for me to deal with, because sometimes you can't help it. Like, you'll make a decision during that week, in that moment, you think, yes, this is a good decision. I need to do this. And then a few days later, after your period comes, you look back and you think, that was stupid. Why did I do that? Only to have to deal with the consequences later, or go back and clean up whatever mess I made. Or conversations, arguments, things that didn't need to happen the way that they happened will happen that week. So being self-aware and being able to stop yourself before you make a bad decision, have a bad experience, say something you didn't mean to say, quit a job you shouldn't have quit. Try not to plan occasions during that week. So if you can help it, try not to schedule, important family outings or dinner with your in-laws, particularly if maybe you already don't get along with your in-laws or something like that. You maybe don't want to be having dinner with people that you already struggle to find time to commit to. Family vacations, even vacations with your partner, like if you want to get out and do something special and just go away for a few days, try to avoid doing it during that time. Some people might argue and they might say this is the time to go because then you're going to relax and enjoy yourself. But for me, in my experience, it's always made the trip less enjoyable when I would do that, because I would find reasons to be upset during the trip. It just, in my experience, is better to save important things for when I'm feeling good. During that week of PMDD, I don't need anything additional, putting more stress on my plate, or planes that I have to catch, or babysitters I have to arrange, or parent-teacher interviews that I have to go and do. Like, pretty much nothing is going to go good that week if I plan it that week. So hopefully that makes sense with the planning. Try to plan around it so that you just give yourself that week. Additionally, if you work night shifts or if you work casually somewhere, plan your job around that if you can. So for myself, I try not to pick up a bunch of night shifts during that week, because I know it's already going to be difficult for me to sleep just by virtue of the fact that I'm working night shifts. Like, it's just going to be a disaster. So I try not to book myself a whole bunch of shifts in a row. I try not to book night shifts. I really try to give myself that week to just get through the week and do what makes me happy. Some months are better than other months, and I'm sure that there's a lot that has to do with it, like the weather, and if things were harder that month than other months, depending on like what's going on in my personal life. We always have things that come up, right? So some times are better than other times, but as a general rule, I try not to plan anything that's going to be difficult or complicated or stressful or extra during that week. The other part of self-awareness is there's 2 parts. One of them is restraining yourself, and this is what's probably the most difficult. Honestly, the most difficult part is dealing with your conversations that you have with yourself during that week and the conversations you have with other people during that week. I'm self-aware now, so I know that in my head, this is just me, and I normally would not be feeling this way. I'm able to recognize that now, where months and years ago, I couldn't recognize it. I would be reactive rather than proactive. I would just be in the moment, say whatever came to my mind, create difficult situations that didn't need to happen. These days, I'm more self-aware. I know that this is just my PMS. I know that this is just my hormones, and I'm able to stop myself before I get into a spiral of negativity, no matter what that is, whether it's a conversation with somebody else or whether it's me having a bad day. So part of it is that self-awareness and being able to restrain yourself from acting on your emotions at the time, because you know that that will pass. You know that that is just your hormones. Now, this is honestly the most difficult part, because for me, when I'm not PMSing, I'm in a very clear mind. I feel like I'm clear-headed. I can see clearly. I'm looking at the world through normal glasses. Everything is fine. I can make good decisions. I react properly in situations. I'm very courteous and pleasant and bubbly and upbeat and all those kind of things, right? That's me normally. But during that week, it's like the opposite happens. Everything, I'm looking at the world through dark, dirty glasses. Everything is bad. Everyone makes me upset. Everything makes me upset. I already feel down in the dumps and depressed, and things I normally take pleasure in, I want nothing to do with them. Stuff I normally work on, I want to quit. Everything goes in the opposite direction for me during that week. So it's very, very difficult. And honestly, the most difficult part is getting to a point where you recognize this is just my hormones, and then being able to respond and act accordingly so that you don't up your life. That is the biggest thing for me, because you can seriously have some pretty bad consequences when you are making decisions out of a bad frame of mind. And I think we all know that. And if you've been here, you understand what I'm saying. So part of it is the self-awareness with dealing with life. The other part is just dealing with the fact that you feel like absolute garbage. You are depressed. You are sad. When I come out of it, I can't believe that I ever was there, but it happens. And part of it is being self-aware to be able to tell yourself, this is just my hormones. This is not reality. This is just my ill perception at the moment, and it will pass. And sometimes when you're having a really, really bad day, just getting through the next 10 minutes can feel like torture. And if you've been there, you know. So sometimes you just, even if you can't feel better, even if you don't want to go to the gym, you don't want to do a face mask, you're not taking pleasure. I mean, if you're in the depths of depression, you are not taking pleasure in any of that stuff. Nothing is making you happy, and you feel like pushing the world away. But then when they aren't there, you feel sad and miserable and lonely and wish that they were there. It's just it's a horrible, horrible feeling to be in that space. And I've been there. You have to be self-aware enough to be able to tell yourself, in this moment, I feel like shit, but this will pass. This will pass. It's important to realize that and to recognize that, because otherwise you can have a very bleak outlook. And I mean, sometimes the best that you can do is just get through that moment. Sometimes the best thing that you can do is just get through that moment, get through that hour, get through that night. Honestly, even if you have to cry yourself to sleep, and that's the best you can do, is lie in bed and cry yourself to sleep. If that's the best you can do, then do it, because it will pass, right? It will pass. I guess that is it in a nutshell. So just to recap, sleep, exercise, fitness, diet, avoid alcohol, plan around your emotions, self-care, and self-awareness. Those are probably the most important things that have helped me. But I do want to end this video by saying that there comes a point when you do need medical help, or I have needed medical help. And it has happened to me when I was in nursing school. Actually, I was going through such a rough time. I had so much on my plate. I was working. I was a mom, single mom, going through nursing school full time, so much on my plate, so many stressors, not getting enough sleep, not eating enough, lots of things at school going on that were very difficult for me to deal with. And I finally one day couldn't get up and go to work. I couldn't get off the couch. I just cried and cried and cried, and I needed help. I couldn't keep functioning that way. And at that point, because there was so much going on in my life that I couldn't control and I couldn't change, I mean, I needed to finish school. I needed to get up and go to work. I needed to be a mom. I needed to look after the house. I needed to do all of these things. I mean, there was really nothing I could take off my plate. I just had such a full plate, right? And I wasn't coping mentally. at all. And obviously my PMS made it that much worse. So at that point, I did go to my doctor and I did start taking an antidepressant. And let me tell you, at that time, that was the best thing I could have done. Like, I needed it. Like, I couldn't function anymore without it. And if you guys want me to do another video and talk about my experience on that medication, what it was, how long I was on it, how it helped me, I can do that. I would not go back on it. I'll say that. Like, I'm happy that now at this point I'm not taking anything and I'm managing without it. But if you do need something, that's not a sign of weakness. That's not a sign of, it doesn't make you a weak person. It doesn't mean that you suck in life. It just means that you need something else to help you, because life is life, and sometimes life is really darn hard. At the time, that was something I really needed. It was very helpful. It was extremely helpful for me. It made it so that I could function and I could do things and I was happy and I had energy. So I do want to end this video by saying that you shouldn't cry yourself to sleep every night, constantly, all the time, continuously. I mean, if you are feeling like that all the time, then maybe it's not just PMDD. Maybe it's something else. Maybe you do need more help. Maybe you need more supports in your life. There's lots of different things, right? Everybody's life is so individual. So again, this is not intended to treat, diagnose, or give you all of your personal health information. And I'm not saying do as I do everything I do. Definitely, if you are struggling in any way, the best thing you can do is see your healthcare provider and discuss it with them. This is, again, just my anecdotal personal experience with PMDD, how it has affected me, and the things that I find are very helpful. And yeah, that is really about it. So hopefully this wasn't too painful to sit through, because I know I'm not sitting here on camera. Hopefully this was helpful for somebody. I know that, there's not a lot of information out there on PMDD, because only recently was it ever recognized in the DSM-5, which is the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Health Disorders. These are the things that have helped me, and I think that they can help whether it is PMDD or PMS, or whether it's anything that you're dealing with in life, anxiety, changes in your life, anything that you're going through that presents difficulties for you emotionally. Hopefully that was either helpful, or whoever was listening, it helped them to feel like they're not alone and other people are going through it. Yeah, that's really about it. So thank you guys for listening, and subscribe if you're interested in other types of videos. I do decluttering, minimalism, perfume videos. That's one of my big passions, is perfume. I do wardrobe declutters and like wardrobe tours, bedroom tours, just kind of sharing whatever sparks my joy and makes me happy. And yeah, I'll see you all next time.